everyone, welcome back. This is Kristie with AG Takes Over, filming in front of the doll's closet because why not? I have been meaning to do this video for a little while now. Occasionally I sell dolls locally, like on Facebook Marketplace, and sometimes I get the sense that the person who's buying the doll is a parent or a grandparent who maybe this is the first American Girl doll they've bought for their child. This is kind of branching out for them, and it is a bit of an investment. It's more expensive than some of the other dolls that their kid might have. And I want them to feel really comfortable doing basic maintenance and prevention to keep their doll in good shape. So I wrote up a document, and it basically covers 7 different points. And I decided some of the people who watch this channel know all of this stuff and more, but some of you do not. So somebody might come across this watching a video for the first time and wonder, how do I do basic care for these dolls? I hope that I answer pretty much every question in this video. So they're broken down into 7 points. Loose limbs, what to do about them. Bad hair. Stains, removing stains from the vinyl. General vinyl cleaning, just cleaning up dirt and grime. Handling shine marks, cleaning the torso, and protecting the eyes. I know there are more, like I could address how to get cigarette smoke out, but really I would just say forget it. Don't buy it unless it's like the rarest doll. And the audience for this, I'm not selling them the rarest dolls. They're not hardcore collectors. These are people who are buying dolls for their children to enjoy and play with, and I just wanted to empower them to take good care of them. So first point is loose limbs, and I mentioned in the document, I'm going to glance over here a little bit because I'm reading directly from the document just so you can see what it is that I tell parents. Oh, and by the way, before we get started, subscribe, comment, like, all those good things. I appreciate it. I'm really good about reading the comments and responding, and I love interacting with you all. So okay, now to the good stuff. Okay, so loose limbs. I explained that over time, limbs, legs in particular, get looser as the elastic that's holding them in, holding them to the torso relaxes. And it's harder for the doll to stand or hold poses. I mentioned that one way you can avoid this, or at least like help slow that process, is to not store them sitting down, to keep them standing. And then I say there are basically 2 options that you have if you want the DIY approach when you do realize that you've either purchased a doll that has loose limbs or the doll that you purchased now has loose limbs. And both of them involve taking the head off and removing the stuffing, right? And then I explain there's this rubber band, or not rubber band, but like hair tie approach. And I give them this link to this video. Since I haven't done a tutorial of it, I just share that one. And then I say the second one is a little bit more involved. It involves you actually restringing the doll's limbs. So you're cutting that old elastic and replacing it. It's still very affordable. It's probably like $4 or $5, but it is a little more involved. I prefer to restring, and I mentioned this. I think in that document I say I will restring dolls that have really loose limbs, but between you and I just prefer to restring the dolls. It's not because it's fun, but I'm not very confident that the ponytail holder approach will last as long, personally. If elastic is shot, elastic is shot. If it really has no elastic to it, I don't know how much of a solution the ponytail holders is, but it is much easier for people and maybe kind of newbie friendly. So I put tutorials for, again, the ponytail approach and a proper restringing tutorial here. I put the links in the document that I give parents. So yeah, and I hope that that helps people feel more comfortable buying used American Girl dolls, because if they get one for the first time and they don't know how to do this, it's like, oh man, they sold me a doll that doesn't even stand up. Well, what am I going to do with this? But if you have the right tools, you're like, okay, well, that's a minor inconvenience. Not a big deal. Give me an hour. I can have this doll good to go, right? We know this. I like the parents that buy from me to know that too. Next up is bad hair. So I explained that if you have a doll that has good hair, great. The easiest way to keep it that way is get the right kind of brush. I know that there's debate about this, but if we're talking to a parent and they're teaching their child how to care for the doll, I will say wet the hair with a spritzer bottle. I know plenty of us adult collectors don't do that, but I would give that advice to a parent. So, dampen their hair with a spritzer bottle. Start at the bottom, work your way up towards the scalp, and take it slowly, right? Also, have them in a protective style. So if you're going to be tossing them into a toy box, which little kids will, put their hair in a braid first or put it in a ponytail just to keep it from getting as tangled, right? So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is the old adage. Anyway, so then I say, but if you have a doll that is already, their hair is a wreck, or you want a doll, but you do realize their hair is a wreck, and we're not talking haircuts, right? But just tangled, frizzy, dry, whatever. First, I go from least invasive to most invasive processes, trying to avoid the invasive ones altogether. So first thing I do is wet and brush it. Go slowly, work from the bottom, work your way up, just like I would, in preventative hair brushing. The more rushed you are, I explain, the more likely you are to pull out hair and thin out the doll's wig. So you're going to have this size pile of hair at the end versus this size or none. Next, I do shampoo and condition the doll's hair. I generally set a timer for 15 minutes after I put shampoo on. I rinse that thoroughly, and then I set a timer for 30 minutes after I put conditioner on. I explain about not soaking the wig cap. I don't think that it will be the end of the world if it gets a little wet, personally, in my experience, but I do explain not to soak the wig cap. And then while it's still very damp, I would say if you're really trying to go least invasive to most invasive, do that, brush it out, let it air dry, and see how it looks. Often that's enough, right? Just a good washing, conditioning, and brushing can do wonders. If it still has a lot of flyaways, if it still feels really rough, then you could work with damp hair that's already been washed and conditioned and use a straightening iron. I definitely do this with a lot of dolls that I bring in, and they're just, the first step isn't enough. So the tricks are working with hair that is damp to wet, not dry, right? Setting the straightening iron on lowest heat setting, working with small sections and working quickly so that the heat is not concentrated on any one section for any length of time. And small sections means the heat's hitting it all evenly versus a thick chunk where it's going to hit the outsides but not the inside. And then I just say feel free to look up tutorials on YouTube because I haven't created one, so I just send people to YouTube and say look this up. I think that is all that's needed in like 95% of the dolls that I work with. Hot water dunks. I didn't say in here, please, for the love of God, whatever you do, don't do a downy dunk. But I guess I should say that because if they get on YouTube, they might see some old videos or even some current uninformed videos that are recommending that. So I probably should update the document to say no downy dunks, right? But hot water dunks, I have done them. We all know that the risk is you're kind of weakening the strands of hair. And if you do them for too long, you can kind of make it feel rubbery, stretched out, rubbery, and more prone to breakage. So different approaches are dunk it really quickly for just a few seconds, or dunk it for a few seconds and then dunk it in ice water, dunk it for a few seconds and dunk it in ice water. I actually have found that if it comes to that, I prefer to use a steamer, protecting the eyes, of course, which I get to later, but using a steamer. So that's an option. But we're talking about parents who may not have experience, and all of these things may feel a little out of their comfort zone. So I definitely emphasize the earlier, least invasive things and just taking good care of their hair to make sure it doesn't get wrecked in the first place. The next thing I have is how to deal with stains. Oh yeah, I did forget to mention, I address if it is a curly hair doll that the straightening iron method or the hot water dunk is going to take out the curl, and there are some tutorials for how to restore that, and encourage people to look those up. But again, I kind of steer them in the less is more for these specific demographics, these folks. So back to limb and face stains. Markers and children are a bad combo. Teach your children to not have markers and pens around their dolls. I do think that children can comprehend this. I have a 3-year-old and she gets that, right? So you can teach kids, like, this can ruin your dolls. But not every kid gets that, you know, or you might buy a doll that already comes with said lovely stains, right? So I say just try washing it off to see if you luck out. Then magic eraser, see if that'll work. And if it's more permanent, then an oxy acne spot treatment is needed, like this one. And I explained that you can place just a dab of it on the vinyl and wait, and wait, and wait. You might put it out in the sun, and that might speed up the process. Sometimes people will wrap it in plastic wrap and put a heating pad on it for brief periods of time on a lower heat just to kind of activate that process. But it can take anywhere from a few days to several weeks, depending on how stubborn it is, right? And what you're doing, whether you're adding heat or not. Especially if it's red or pink, right? So if it, pink highlighter or whatever is going to take a lot longer. I explained that, with tougher stains, I typically will take the acne spot treatment off every few days and reapply some. I don't know if that helps or not. You can let me know if you think that that's necessary or if I'm just building in extra steps, but I don't know. I feel like maybe the newer stuff will be more effective, so change it out every few days. And then I also pointed out you might notice that the cream discolors the vinyl around the stain. So like it's this color, but it's even lighter right where the stain was, and that's temporary. You can just wash it off. A lot of times it will return to its normal color within a couple of hours of removing the oxy. Sometimes I have to wash it several times. I have heard that if you need to use rubbing alcohol, you can do that and it will like permanently take off that discoloration, but that should be a temporary thing, right? Because this process is so time consuming, I say the ideal situation is to buy dolls without too many stains, or where you're not in any hurry to give the doll to a child, and also keep markers and dolls away from each other. All right, next, and I guess I should switch this up and put general vinyl cleaning first, but yeah, the next point I have on here is general vinyl cleaning. I feel like including this in this video is like so basic, but again, I don't know who's going to end up watching this. So if you're just dealing with general like dirt and dinge, I don't use the baking soda water paste. You certainly can. I explain that I get a magic eraser and I cut it into like 6 different pieces. I'm not gonna lie, when I see some of you all like grab the whole sponge and you're just using one corner, I don't know why this drives me nuts. Not drives me nuts, but it kind of makes me like, don't do that. The thrifty part of my brain is like, no, cut it into little things. And then you just use the crap out of this one little square on one doll and then you toss that away and you still have a nice looking sponge for the rest of it. Probably doesn't make any difference. Like, in how quickly I go through a sponge versus somebody else, but for some reason my brain is like, Anyway, so get a magic eraser sponge, wet it, squeeze it out so it's just damp. And for the legs and the arms, you can go to town. You can really get in there and scrub and see if you can get any of the stains off. For the face, I would say avoid or go very gently when you're talking about eyebrows or cheeks or lips, because you can erase the color, as seasoned doll collectors know, right? But brand new people to this don't know that, so that's why I include it. Next up is shine marks. And as seasoned doll collectors also know, shine marks are 1, way too common. They happen so easily. And 2, those kind of scuff marks. If the doll falls and it's not enough to like create a scratch, but it's just enough to make like a shiny mark, so that when you're going like this with the vinyl, these little spots, they almost look like scratches or something, but they're just shine marks. That's why I don't know how else to explain it. If you know, you know, right? Some people aren't bothered by these at all, but if a parent was trying to make a used doll look more pristine, or keep their dolls looking pristine, it's a good skill to have. I explain about micro mesh and how to use that. I mentioned this product. And I also, for minor things, for minor shine marks, I prefer to just use a dry magic eraser, not wet it, and just like it takes a while, but I usually do it while I'm watching TV or something. And so I'm just like going to town on somebody's nose over here for 20 minutes. And then I look and I go, all right, good. The shine mark came out. I just feel like there's no way that I'm going to create a scratch by being too rough with that. But there's a small possibility if I use the wrong coarseness of micro mesh that I might create some kind of scratching while I'm working on it with micro mesh. So I prefer to start least invasive, and that's what I encourage new doll owners to do. Next, oh yeah, and I do put this video link in there, so if people want to watch that. Next is cleaning the torso. All right, so I explained to new doll owners that if you are comfortable taking off the head, you can put the rest of the doll in the washing machine. I have done this with just the torso, where I was already going to restring a doll, so I took all the limbs off and then just put the torso in, and also maybe the stuffing if I just want to make sure that it's nice and clean. Or I have done it with all the limbs still attached, and I just make sure that how I dry it, make sure that nothing is getting rusted inside, especially if it's not metal crimping sleeves inside holding the elastic on, but if it's the plastic knotted kind, there's really nothing that's going to rust. As long as you dry it properly, then you're not going to have to worry about mold or anything. So I personally am comfortable with that. Not everybody is. I do mention this YouTube tutorial for if you're going to put your doll in the washing machine. And I say, if you don't want to clean the whole torso, but you're just dealing with a specific stain, my suggestion is do your research, because what approach you're going to want to take depends on what kind of stain it is. Mud, blood, grease-based stains, earth-based stains, and to watch several tutorials before deciding which approach you want to take. I just don't feel comfortable making a blanket statement and giving blanket advice to somebody when I have no idea what stains they're going to encounter. All right. So if you don't know, just don't say anything is my approach for that one. Next is protect the eyes, which I think is, that's the last step on here, which not in chronological order, just it's the last thing I have on the document. All right, so I just explained it's very important to protect these dolls' eyes from water, that the mechanisms in them can rust, that it's a quick way to, a tiny bit of water between you and I is not going to hurt. But I want them to know, if you're shampooing this doll, you can't just get water in their eyes, because over time you can do damage to the eyes. So my approach is to take cotton balls on both eyes and then put painter's tape across the whole, across here, holding the cotton balls in place. Other people may take other approaches, but I think that works. And I just explain, they'll stick and not close properly if they become damaged. So that's why that matters. And that's it. Like I mentioned, you can do eye swaps, you can do wig swaps. There's all kinds of stuff. And if you get into that and feeling really comfortable, YouTube is a wealth of information. But I think those are the basics. I guess I didn't really cover I didn't include anything about smells. I mean, my basic least invasive is put your doll outside on a sunny day, ranging all the way up to the hell that I had to go through to get the smoke stink out of our Leah doll. But I don't think that are there any other basics that I should add to that? I'm just if you're thinking about parents getting a first doll or grandparents wanting to gift a doll to their grandchild, what are the basic things that they need to know? I feel like that's pretty good. Oh, I should say don't store them long-term. I should give long-term storage tips. I could do that. Anything else? Anything I'm missing? Drop it in the comments. Anything you disagree with me about, politely drop it in the comments. I hope that maybe you find this helpful. If you actually want the document, you would like to save it or share it with somebody, just email me, agtakesOver@gmail.com. I'm happy to share it. It's just for a public service announcement, so I'm happy to share that, and you can add to it whatever you want. All right, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Whether you've subscribed, yay, or not, I'm happy that you are here, and I hope to see you again for a future video.